When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, He created him with what's called the Fitrah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the 30th chapter, فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, using the word creation, He created the human being with a fitrah. What is this fitrah? What does it mean? Why is it relevant for us today? And why is it important when it comes to the story of Adam alayhi salam, our origin? The word fatara or fitrah comes from the word fatara, which means to separate something from something else. Now, Arabs will loosely translate this or understand it as creation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being al-fatir, He is the creator. But it has a connotation of knowledge and the ability to make two things, or to make something into two distinct entities. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salam, He made him distinct, differentiable, discernible from other creations through this idea of a fitrah. And the concept of a fitrah is that the human being is born with a natural inclination towards certain things, a natural disposition. And scholars discuss this quite a bit, and there's a little bit of difference of opinion in terms of what exactly these natural tendencies are. But I'll try and summarize all of that into two simple things. Number one, the human being is inclined to a higher power. Now, what this means is, in the heart, there is a natural acceptance, this natural yearning to want to know the higher power, a subtle belief within the human being. And again, I'm speaking in terms of where there's general consensus, right? There's a general belief within the human being that there is a higher power, there is a creator. But the human being doesn't know the details or the information about who the higher power is beyond maybe that there's a creator. But who this creator is, why the creator created the creation, if the creator wants anything from the creation, the commands of the creator, this is unknown. But what is known is that the human body, the human self, the soul, needs to feel that it is attached to a higher power. And so what this means for us today is that if the human being is not in contact with what the body, what the soul wants to be in contact with, then there'll be a feeling of a void. Something is missing, something is eating away at the human being. Now, some people might learn how to accept this, or they might replace that void with other things of the world, whether that's the ego. They might view themselves as the God to be worshipped, as Allah mentions in the Quran. Or they might fill that void with entertainment and consuming the blessings of this world, consuming what this world has to offer, or in other ways. But the fact of the matter is, the soul needs to feel that it is connected to a higher power. And the more the soul is in tune with that higher power, and the more the soul is taught and has accurate information about who the higher power is and what the higher power wants from the individual, then the more the soul will be nourished, and the better, the more well the human being will be. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, you have a fitrah. There is a way to be a human being. And I mentioned one, the higher power. The other is a general grasp of morality and ethics. That we human beings, there are certain principles in which we believe is appropriate for the human self, such as murder being wrong, such as honesty and truthfulness being praiseworthy, such as generosity and selflessness being praiseworthy, such as oppression and tyranny being something to push back against. We have a general idea of morality. And when the human being embraces morality, it essentially amplifies the human being and the human individual. And so the more the human being develops themselves through this idea of morals and ethics, then the more empowered they are as a human being, the more they are in tune with their humanness. To put this all differently, the fitrah is telling us, is suggesting to us that there is a correct way of being a human being, and there is an incorrect way of being a human being. The correct way of being a human being is developing your relationship with the higher power, who we know to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of all, as well as living according to akhlaq, according to ethics and principles. This is so intertwined with the Islamic experience that the Prophet ﷺ literally says, جِئْتُ لِأُتَمِّمْ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I have come to perfect the gracious characteristics the human being ought to live by, ﷺ. But the Western world and Western philosophy, especially once you get into the realm of liberalism, they reject this idea of a natural human state, or what's termed as essentialism. This idea that there is a correct way of being a human being and an incorrect way of being a human being. They totally reject that. And it's gotten so bad that now they are saying morality, even morality is subjective. Truth is subjective. And what that means is they believe, this ideology, this philosophy believes that there's really no real truth. There's really no correct way of living. There really is no ethical right and wrong, but rather everything's subjective, meaning it goes back to you. The truth is what you want the truth to be, what you make the truth out to be. And nobody else has the right to tell you, no, that's not true. This is totally against Islam. Islam says there is right and there is wrong. There is a correct way of living and there is an incorrect way of living. And what's so beautiful, what I think is so beautiful about this verse, about the fitrah, is that after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the human being, Adam alayhi salam, was created with this fitrah, Allah then says, لا تبديل لخلق الله. Nothing can change the way Allah created His creation. And what this means, dear brothers and sisters, please pay attention to this. Allah created you a certain way as a human being. And included in that is the male and the female. Being a male, being a female is part of the fitrah, part of the way Allah created you. And Allah is saying, no matter how much you try to change the fitrah, no matter how much you try to live a lifestyle that is not guided by the fitrah, you essentially cannot escape the fitrah. And the more a person deviates from the fitrah, the more it rips the individual apart from the inside, and they will never be able to fill the void, no matter what they stuff it with. And so this is why scholars, our dear teachers, our mentors, past and present, they encourage the Muslims, they encourage humanity, follow the way of Allah, meaning the Quran. Follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ in Sunnah and Hadith. And you will never find happiness, real happiness, happiness with real substance, until you apply these two. Because these two are completely in line with the fitrah. And anything that goes away from these two is now going away from the fitrah. And when the human being feels like a human being, then they feel at ease, they feel at peace. But when the human being doesn't feel like a human being, then there's something off. And they start developing very strange and bizarre behaviors. We see this in the world today. No, it might not be the majority, but we're seeing some of these fringes starting to develop behaviors that has literally turned some people into literally behaving and acting like animals, putting leashes around themselves and crawling on fours as though they are a puppy or they are a cat. The deviation from the fitrah is something that the Quran and the Sunnah came to protect us from. And so by learning the story of Adam, as we continue to do, alayhi salatu wasalam, we embrace the way Allah created him. And we also embrace the fact that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions His creation, He says, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ, that Allah is the source of blessings. All blessings go back to Him. And one of His blessings is in how He created the creation. How you were created is the best way you can ever be. Why? Because you were created by Allah. And anything that is away from how Allah created His creation cannot but be a downgrade of the origin of that creation. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for watching. Please share this khair and let other people benefit from the lessons, and support this masjid by becoming one of its sustainers.